All right, welcome back to Off the Crypto Cuff. I'm your host, Jesse, and this is Jeff. Two friends having a conversation while having a drink. Once we finish our drink, conversation ends. Basically, politics, whatever current events, but primarily crypto. So tonight, I'm having a little black draft. I think I've had this before on here. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Some whiskey, bourbon whiskey over from West Virginia distillery. So.
Well, wrapping up on my Bardstown.
Bardstown. All right. Cheers.
Yep. Cheers.
So yeah, we're seeing a little bit of spike in the market right now, due to a number of reasons. Bitcoin hits all-time high. It looks like at 118,872 on Friday.
Yep.
July 11th, which is today. So it's kind of exciting. So when that happens, we always see all the altcoins get dragged up too at the same time. So we're seeing some spike in those.
Yeah.
But
go
ahead.
Just to clarify it, this is not alt season. So basically, when Bitcoin raises, rising tides raises all ships.
Yeah.
So what we're really looking for,
dragging them up with it. Yeah.
Yep. And what we're really looking for is in a traditional crypto market, and there's still a lot of people saying that this is not traditional. Yet to be seen. Bitcoin market, Bitcoin's dominance will collapse, and when that happens, that's basically all the Bitcoin whales, or the people that are doing trades, taking their Bitcoin profits, rolling them into basically alts, and then alts will start popping off, here and there as that money starts flowing downwards. Yep. So we're still waiting for that to happen.
Yeah. So you're thinking this is kind of more of the summer trend, essentially we see usually around this time. But also you mentioned something about Jerome Powell maybe kind of hinted in some way that he might be retiring.
Yeah, I haven't found any real confirmation about it. I think it was reported by no, I don't know who it was. I was thinking about a different article before I misassociate something, but I think there was a hint that he might be. He's getting a lot of pressure from a lot of people. I mean, technically, it's one of those positions that he can't get fired from.
Right.
And Trump just spends all of his time just making fun of him. So he just might be getting it from all sides. So it just might be one of those things where he's just throwing up his hands and walking away. Honestly, I don't see any real world way of saving the US dollar, the Federal Reserve note. It's already been inflated into oblivion. And the only real way out of inflation is through more inflation, which just leads to hyperinflation. And that's the direction we've already been heading.
Yeah.
So basically, at a certain point, we'll have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At a certain point, the U.S. will end up back to where it was before in the 70s, where we did a monetary replacement.
Yeah.
So a new monetary system will come out. How well the U.S. comes out of that, there's several ways that could actually end up happening. It just depends on how strong the U.S. is politically, how strong it is militarily, how strong is the actual economic base. When I say the economic base, I'm not talking about the money. I'm talking about the actual productive value within the United States, which has been severely diminished. If any one of those things is less than some other country, then some other country is basically going to take over, our role that we've actually fit for the last 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's part of why this administration is adopting crypto so well. They see this potential, obviously they're trying to save the dollar at the same time, I think that they're also seeing the possibility, like you're saying, this taking over. But that's my opinion, at least on that.
Well, they'll still call it the dollar. It just will be under a different monetary system.
Right.
So basically, as a Federal Reserve note dollar, that's collapsing.
Yeah. That's it's interesting for sure. I was also thinking, I don't know if it may have something to do with, I don't know what's everything in the big beautiful bill that was passed, but I know a big part of that was also potential tax cuts and tax changes and things to help the common man. So
We're not
I
as
don't know if
big as
that's
what.
yeah. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Sorry, I don't know if that's some of the sentiment pushing Bitcoin up too. Maybe it, maybe there's something in there we don't know. Maybe that's a part of that maybe pushing it. What were you gonna say? So,
1 second.
yeah. But
Off the cuff.
yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, but yeah, it was I didn't know if the bill actually passed, but it was fully, but it looks like it has. Now they're saying basically we as the voters need to buy into it now that so
Well, I
that's what
mean,
they're
once it
trying to
gets
do at
put
this
into
point.
law, I mean, our direct effect on it, it goes all the way up to who we get into office. That's Congress, Senate, President.
Right,
Once it's signed into law, the only way citizenry has any real effect of the law is it said if we are injured in some way by it, being able to sue and try to get it to the Supreme Court to get it struck down as unconstitutional. So that's really a long reach of getting that far. So once it gets passed, I've basically got Grok running a search right now. But from my understanding, there was a lot of things in it that got removed that were hyper beneficial that would have actually been great for a lot of people across the board. Like the Hearing Protection Act was in there because it was in big omnibus bill, a bill of bills, things that weren't even related to basically budgeting was in there.
right.
And basically it's like one of these handies was, or these easies was the Hearing Protection Act. And what that would have done was actually remove the tax stamp requirement for silencers. So basically, that would have actually kind of cut the regulatory knees a little bit of uh, uh,
Brain fart there.
yeah, a pretty big one.
Yeah,
But and, as anybody knows, that silencers, they're not silent. They just, they're called suppressors because they reduce the sound by a quite significant bit. If you shoot a gun, those things are loud. They will deafen you. And if you do it too often without hearing protection, it can become permanent.
right.
So it's like having, basically being able to lawfully have a suppressor on your firearm if you ever have to defend your home, because you're in close quarters. You're not going to have time to also find hearing protection. You're just going to have to grab, go, and protect your house, your family. And that would just been nice, because that would just make the situation even better for the people of the household, the people that belong in the household.
Right.
Even though it's a dire situation,
Yeah.
that got removed. And there was a lot of other things that got removed. And then there was some things that actually kind of got watered down. So there's some people actually complaining about what was in there was the tax relief.
Well, so I just saw that the child tax credit, the
Yeah.
current 2000 child tax credit is set to return to the pre-2017 level of 1,000 until in 2026. So the tax credit would permanently increase to 2,200 under the bill, $300
Mhm.
less than the initial House passed hike.
Okay.
So a little bit watered down, but also like cost
Yeah.
bringing it back up.
There was people on X. I'm not seeing it here with Grok's result, but there were people on X complaining about the no tax on tips because there was like severe limits put on it.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah, I see that too. Tip
yeah,
workers would still have to pay state and local income tax and payroll taxes.
yeah,
Um, it's more of a create a new deduction for tip workers.
yep,
So it's not that they would not pay it. It's just that they would have the ability to get it back at the end of the year
yep.
based on their as a deduction.
Um, see here. So basically, just going over the headlines, because 5 pros, 5 cons. And we could probably could go into these further if we need to. But massive tax relief for middle class was one. Business competitive boost, wins for farmers, rural America, defense and border security surge. That was actually needed. I could agree with that. Family education perks. Um, and then cons. Favors wealthy over middle class. Okay, that's probably like a hit piece. BBC, The Guardian. Yep.
Yeah.
Ballooning deficit and debt. Yeah, there's a lot of people complaining about that, like Thomas Massey, and some other libertarians. I'm in the same boat. Social program slashes, anti-immigration enforcement burdens, and green energy rollbacks. And again, get rid of that green energy shit. That just is a money sink.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that pissed off Elon Musk. He's like, "You're gonna get rid of my tax credits?" He's like, "Well, you've been in business for quite a while. I mean, you should have formulated your business model to function without those subsidies."
Well, most of those subsidies went away after the first couple of years, anyways. Of whenever you release a new car, right? It was kind of like it only lasted for so long because it was kind of a pass forward thing, wasn't it? Like if you buy a car.
It depends on what this is talking about, because one of Elon Musk's big advantages that he's been taking care of is, and I forgot which Congress signed this into law. We could actually research this, or somebody can actually just put it into a comment and interact with us. So basically, at a certain point, carbon credits became a thing, and that was basically tracking how polluting a company was. And you had to have the carbon credits to basically offset your pollution. Basically, it's just a tax because it really doesn't offset anything. So, but because Elon Musk's Tesla was building batteries and electric cars, they, in theory, magically had a low carbon footprint, which means that they had surplus carbon credits. So the way the system worked is that you could actually sell your carbon credits on the open market. So that's why, a additional income for Tesla.
I see. Yeah,
so it just depends on what they're actually talking about here. Again, this is a very high level summary, which actually doesn't get into those details. But this is like, get rid of a lot of that stuff. It's just costing us money, and needlessly, a lot of those regulations are actually stifling innovation. They're actually preventing industry from actually coming back to the U.S. It's actually part of the reason why industry left the U.S. is you can actually have clean technologies that are not necessarily these magical renewables that are surprisingly dirty, especially between collecting the materials that are required to build them to everything else. This just doesn't happen in our backyard, so we don't care. It's just happening in third world nations. And that's part of the problem. A lot of people are so divorced for the reality of how their phone goes from, a mining plant and all the plastic and everything else that's in this, the rare earth materials and the toxic waste created to create this thing and get it to you. It's kind of crazy. Huh?
I know. Yeah, well, that's like you see the cartoons where the Tesla is plugged into the electric cord, which routes all the way to some big factory that's releasing all the smoke in the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's not an electric vehicle; it's a coal powered vehicle. That's the reality.
Yeah,
most of the electricity produced in the United States is coal. So if you're plugging your Tesla in to an outlet that's tied to the electrical grid, you have a coal-powered car.
Yep. Unless you happen to have the solar power that can support it on your house.
Exactly. I mean, unless you actually went the extra step.
Rare, because most of the solar systems aren't efficient enough to even power your house fully, essentially. So which is also a storage bank of batteries that eventually will be a pollutant to the environment. So,
and not to mention, the amount of diesel that's burned to extract the rare earth minerals, the lithium, the strip mining that's happening.
Right. Yeah. It's all you're doing is changing it to another hand. Really. No, I agree with that. Don't get me wrong. There's probably some sense of it, but I don't think it's as great as people think. Is really what it goes down to.
It's just like I'm for innovation, but the innovation needs to be able to happen within a free market space. and that's where real breakthroughs happen.
Right. Well, that's the problem. Is it's not going to whatever happens, and I think that's the big reason why fusion has been pushed down so hard is because if fusion really gets out there, it it's not going to make anybody money, and I think that's what it boils down to. Is we have a hard time with the oil industry. They're pushing a lot of that stuff down. I mean, we've had electric cars for centuries. We've had I remember, I think when I was in high school, I was like 17 years old reading Popular Mechanics, and GM developed a car that could drive across the US with gas because it used a very small 1 horsepower engine to charge a battery pack when it needed, and it would start up automatically, or whatever, and charge it up, and then so they could drive from one side of the United States to the other United States on a battery with 1 gallon of gas because it would use such a little amount. So that was, I mean, I'm 46 years old right now. That was years and years ago. So the fact that was happening then, but the problem is the gas industry was holding it down. Because they looked at electric cars as a way of taking money out of their pockets essentially. And so it's, and I think that's why we're seeing electric, because now there's so many companies that have switched to it and things are starting to become more streamlined with it that people can make money off of it. So now that's another way, minerals, like you said, the rare earth minerals and stuff like that. It's another way people are making money off it. It's a whole other industry now. So that's why I think because fusion's been around for a long time. Well, not super long, but it's been around for a while. And I know firsthand that people have worked on developing a vehicle that runs on and creates its own, it has its own plant for fusion and allows it to, create its own just from water. So it's fuel. So I don't know. I think that's the way of the future, but it's going to be really difficult for that to actually happen without some sort of way people are going to actually make money from it, in the big industry.
Well, let's just get conspiratorial for a second, though. Yeah. Is it said if with the way electric cars work, and especially with the way automation works, the reality is, well, I can't say reality, but the conspiracy would be is to force electric cars on people is more about control and limits. So basically, you could actually program in boundaries. You could actually charge people. It's like, oh, you want to go outside of your control zone? It's going to cost you. Or is this like, because there are things that are set in reality. I mean, there are people that said these things or presented these as ideas. The idea of a 15-minute city, which means everything that you need as an individual, your doctor, your grocery store, your entertainment, everything you need to sustain your life for eternity, or for the span of your life, is within 15 minutes of you. So that in a world set within that concept, it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to say, well, if you want to go outside of your 15-minute area, it's going to cost you, right? Or you're not a good citizen, or you're not this, or some other thing. And of course, the World Economic Forum's famous for saying, well, you will own nothing, be happy. And we're both of the age of owning, music, records, CDs, right, tapes. It's like I even remember playing my dad's 8-tracks, and we've gone from a society of real ownership to where today we really hardly own anything that we have.
Yeah. You don't even own your own house, property. Even if you don't have a mortgage, you still own it.
Well, and it's like, Ron DeSantis has his issues, but it's like, that's one thing I agree with him on. It's like he's trying to end property taxes in Florida.
Yeah. I know. Like, I saw him talking about that I thought, I mean, honestly, it is true, because it's like, how can you tax something that you own and you pay zero money on it? You've paid the taxes on it when you buy it. So why would they continue? How can they continue to tax something that you own? Like, it's
right. This is like, if the state's going to intervene, it needs to intervene up front, and it needs to do it on the sale. Mm-hmm. And that's the only time and operation that should be able to do. It's like, it's like people actually getting a hold of property through property taxes, because that's actually a legit business. People actually find people that are behind on their taxes, pay, 2, 3, 5 grand, whatever it is, dirt cheap, and effectively legally own that property.
Yeah.
And they have the legal right to kick out the owners that pay, tens of thousands, or depending on where they live, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And this person's getting in for literally pennies on the dollar because of the state.
Right.
You don't, you're just renting it from the state. That's it.
Yep. Exactly. Speaking of the state, have you heard about how Moore has decided to basically follow suit with what Trump has done? Elon Trump has done with the kind of cutting the government. So Moore's the governor of Maryland, which is where we are. So the Moore while they were in session back in January, February, they realized they had I think it was a 66 billion dollar deficit. And so basically their decision was to raise taxes, implemented some new taxes. They also increased, it's doubled our vehicle registration. So there's just all these little things. It's basically hurting us as citizens, kind of the middleman sort of.
I saw the tax increase thing. I didn't know why, but that makes sense. It's like, just leave it to a Democrat. It's like, it's not our spending. It's you're just not paying enough to help us out.
Exactly. So instead of so apparently he's gotten a lot of slack on it. Even Hogan has talked about rerunning for governor on the next term, and I guess he's kind of like, they think it's political and he's aiming for re-election. So now all of a sudden his tone is completely changed, and what they're saying is he's implementing a government hiring freeze and allowing for early outs, just literally the same thing the federal government just did. And it's kind of funny because it's like, I don't know, here you have a strong Democratic, mayor or governor, and with a very strong Democratic state, and he's all of a sudden now he's following what the Republican president is doing because he's like, oh, this works, or like the people want this. It's just really strange.
And it's like a lot of those people, it's just like they go with the way the wind blows. But at the same time, I looked at his platform, and that's why I typically have ignored him, because he served in the Army?
More.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, he looks, definitely military.
Yeah, he was definitely military. So basically, he saw him on a sworn oath now to the Constitution twice, and he's anti-gun. So, on the face of it, his principles by themselves are an antithesis to the U.S. Constitution, which means to me, and I can't do anything about it. I'm not going to do anything about it. But as far as I'm concerned, he should not be in office.
Yeah.
It's just like he's already, that I would say is like he has the right to express his view that people should not own guns privately, and that should be a legit free speech view. That's enshrined in the First Amendment. But I hope he does not try to get any legislation put through based off those views, because that legislation would be unconstitutional. Let me phrase it that way.
No, I gotcha. I agree. Yeah, he actually, yes, he was U.S. Army. He was activated. What's more U.S. Army? He was activated following the September 11 attacks and deployed to Afghanistan from 2005 to 2006.
I think it was commissioned.
He was a captain. Yep, within the 82nd Airborne Division. He left the Army in 2014. I don't know why they say activated, because activated to me means he was a reservist, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So he's, I think he's just, I don't know. I don't like him. I'll just put that out there. I don't like him. He seems like he moves with the waves of what makes sense for him. Essentially.
Well, and that's the
he
thing.
Doesn't. Yeah, it's almost like he doesn't stand for anything. He stands for what he thinks is going to make him win the race.
Yeah, and it's like, which basically is why a lot of these Democrats, even Republicans, again, this is like I'm neither. In all honesty, it's like I really find both sides of the aisle really irk me,
Yeah.
but
Oh, I agree.
especially modern Democrats.
Yeah.
It's being being so fluid just by the whims of what do you think the plurality of the people want is not necessarily good leadership. It's like,
Right.
there's a lot to say potentially against Thomas Massey, but at the same time, I respect the absolute fuck out of the guy because he is beyond principled. And for the big beautiful bill, it would still probably make the final bill extraordinarily large. But he said that if you broke it up into three bills, and he defined it, I forgot what the breakup was, but he would have had no problems passing Trump's agenda if it was in one bill with the rest of the stuff separately, and he was able to vote on the stuff separately. But because of his stance, his principles, he could not, in good conscience, vote on it. And in my opinion, and this is a bold statement, but I've heard other people say this, he is more "Make America Great Again" than Trump is.
Right. Interesting.
But that's my opinion.
I don't know much about him, actually. Who is that again, you said?
Representative Thomas Massey. He lost his wife to cancer, I think, last year or the year before last. He's an MIT graduate. He owns a farm, I think, in Kentucky.
Okay.
Extremely smart. Operates a farm, which is effectively a business.
Right.
So and obviously extremely principled. Now he's part of the Libertarian Party. Well, now he's not part of the Libertarian Party because he got elected as a Republican. And of course, that's when you get into an office. That's where you have to be, which actually does, off the cuff, we can bring this up. So what do you think of Elon's American Party?
You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Or the audience? I gotcha.
Both.
I don't really know much about it, honestly. So he's trying to create an American party? Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay. I have not heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where I already started shaking my head. And there's a lot of reasons why to shake your head. We already have the Green Party, the Libertarian Party. There's a lot of different third parties.
Yeah.
And
wasn't there the Green? Was it the Tea Party at one time? Essentially,
that was actually part of the Republican Party.
Okay.
And there was Tea Party candidates that made the ticket.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of that already got co-opted and pushed to the side because that happened during the 2008 crash.
Yeah.
Going back to crypto, around the same time that Bitcoin was born.
Well, I mean, I'm all for another party, honestly. Like, I feel like it's bad that we only have a two-party election usually when it comes to the presidential, candidates.
And that's kind of the annoyance because they tend. It's for people paying attention. It's political theater and it's bad theater,
right?
And they typically, on air, they're all always at their throats and all this other stuff. But typically, the same shit keeps getting through Congress and the Senate.
Right.
We keep having these omnibus bills. We keep kicking the can down the road on,
the budget
and the budget, entitlement spending, and all these different things. They keep kicking the can down the road on a lot of stuff. And by some miracle, we ended up with Trump as president, which is pretty much as far outside the establishment as he can get. But the guy is tenacious, a billionaire. He basically has everything that's required. Oh, and of course, the "I don't quit or give up" attitude.
Right.
Because if you go back, it's like
or give in. I think it's a give in thing with him a little bit. Yeah.
Because if you go back to what was the late '90s, early 2000s, Ross Perot, he was basically the spoiler in the election, and he kept coming in and out of the election. And there was rumors that the reason why he kept coming in and out was because he was getting death threats, not just for himself, but for his family. And he didn't have that attitude that Trump does. Which basically kept him in and out of the race. If he actually stayed in the race, we probably would have had a true independent, because he was running as an independent. There was actually 3 debaters on the stage.
Right.
So you actually had the Democrat, the Republican, and Ross Perot occasionally, if anybody remembers that. Again, showing my age.
Yeah, I sort of do.
Well,
I think Trump was actually independent before he ran the first time, but he had to choose a party, so he chose Republican.
Well, I mean, you have to be on a major party ticket typically to get in. I mean, it's like Ron Paul. I mean, he is a libertarian, but he ran. The only time he lost his congressional seat is when he ran as a libertarian. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he always ran as a Republican. And just how the effectively the game's played. So will Elon's little American party really do anything? I doubt it. Just for that fact. And then you add on the fact that one of the people that is interested in helping him out is Andrew Yang, the proponent for universal basic income. Seriously? I mean, how moronic of an idea can you get?
Yeah. I believe is it Holland? No. Yeah, I think Holland has something like that. If I'm right, it's like a universal income. Let me see. Are there any countries? Because they have a low poverty rate there. I know they almost have zero homeless, but I don't know if that's because of the way they provide, to low income. What'd you look up?
I'm asking Grok to see if there's any nations with a successful universal basic income.
Yeah. No. So I don't know why does Holland? I wonder why Holland.
Oh, come on! Why do you bring up Alaska? That doesn't count.
Yeah, it's Netherlands has a low poverty rate due to a combination of factors, including strong social safety nets, robust labor protections, and relatively high level of social and economic equality. That's why. It's basically like they have good programs that help take care of the citizens that are low income. So it's that work. I don't know why we don't go to these different countries for so many things. I mean, I'm just talking about even like public transportation and road laws and all that type of stuff, but also like countries like Netherlands that actually works, has these programs and it works for them. And I don't know why we don't go and study those programs and those things and bring it back here to the US and actually implement it. Now I've heard of us doing that, like spending all this money to go study it and then bring it back, but then nothing happens. I don't know why it never gets implemented. That's why I don't understand.
Well, there's several issues. And I would say probably the biggest is cultural. Is that a lot of times it's not necessarily the program itself. It's the culture of the nation that the program is implemented in.
Okay. Embellish.
Huh?
Embellish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you take a look at a lot of those countries are the size, and even, I mean, India's the outlier. I mean, yeah. And China's actually kind of.
I mean, take a specific
if you're taking a look at a lot of the European nations,
right,
they're sized roughly about the size of our states.
Yeah, but
And
you don't.
they
So you don't
have
think
a
you could scale it? Like it
no,
couldn't.
and they have a cohesive culture that runs almost through their entire state. There might be some cultural differences that would equate to basically, their provinces that would be, within basically our
Oh,
counties. But if you go from north to south, east
I
to
see what you're saying.
west,
Yeah, yeah,
right, you could actually see these different cultures even within the US. We
yeah.
don't actually have a cohesive culture throughout the entire country. And that's just on the large scale. And you start getting into the micro scale, a lot of people already, entitlement bound, or basically uh, just dependent on it, not wanting to get off of these entitlements. And then you're just going to
Right,
say, well, I'm just going to give you enough money to where you could actually live every single month and you don't have to work. I mean, how much is society just going to just throw up their hands and walk away? I mean,
right.
it's like we're already tax debts, as it is.
Yeah, I mean, in Europe, I mean, most of them are 50% taxed. So that is the one part about that. I
Hmm.
guess that's true too.
Yeah, it's just like some of those countries, depending on what your station is, you might as well not be working because your tax rate is just going to be atrocious.
Right.
I mean, so we do have some saving grace here, but again, that just has to go with back to the cycling of how the dollar is failing and the reason why the tax structure is the way it is, and the reason why taxes are eventually potentially going to go up because of trying to rescue the dollar. And the only way to rescue the dollar is to pull as much out of circulation as possible. And the only
Right.
way to do that is to raise taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, well, and this has been a short one, but I'm on empty here. Yep.
Yeah, same
Or
here.
two.
I'm
Not
sure
a lot
there's
of
more to
material.
talk about, but hey.
Yeah, yeah. Not a lot of material. But some highlights. I think what's going on recently.
Hmm.
Um, just gotta. I mean, watch the market right now. I feel like we're kind of in an upward trend at the moment. We'll see what happens. I think, like you said, this isn't necessarily an alt season. It's a Bitcoin season, midsummer situation. So, you know,
Yeah.
just
I,
not a good time to buy, but maybe a good time to watch. Not necessarily
I,
a good time to sell either, I would say. Not
yeah,
not
it's just
financial
like
advice, but
yeah, yeah, and not financial advice. Always do your own research.
yeah.
And just yeah, Bitcoin is still in price discovery.
Yeah.
Um, let me see here. I have the 1618 at 102, so it's about a quarter from the 1618. This is the Fibonacci to the 261, which would put it at 155. I have the market top at 242.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it ever hits that. I mean, again, if this is a normal market, it just could just balloon, hit it, do the crash back, and then as it's crashing back and its dominance is starting to wane, and then you're really going to see this, waterfall effect of all that liquidity start rolling to alts.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
we'll see. I think this is going to be a small spike. I think we're going to hit the ceiling on a lot of stuff. And then we're going to pull back again. And then I think we'll be in for one more. I'm hoping.
well, I mean, no, well, the double top
Now
only
with a big
happened
one.
once because
Yeah.
we're what on our fifth having. So every four
Yeah,
years,
must be. Yeah.
2008. So I mean, so yeah,
Yeah,
so
roughly.
every four
Yeah.
years, yeah,
Yeah. So
roughly.
we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, so fourth, 16 years.
Yeah.
Um, so last cycle was the first time there was a double top. There was one on the halving year, and then there was a second one the year after. That doesn't guarantee a double top this time,
Right.
but at the same time, it's again, not financial advice. As the market tops, take profit, go to the beach somewhere, wait for the crash back to happen, and then slowly start buying back in.
Right.
And then if it tops again, Well, guess what? You now actually have more profit to take.
Yeah.
You know,
Smart money.
Yep. I mean, it's like, don't make our mistakes. Don't take screenshots.
Right.
I'm not. I didn't do that, but there was a lot of people. This is like, I should have taken screenshots last time. I should have sold.
Yeah.
I'm like looking at those. It's like, no, I should have just sold. I didn't do that. I was not posting anywhere.
All right. You want to sign off?
Yeah. So everybody, thank you for joining us. And if you would be so kind to give us a like, share, and comment down below. Join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Till next time.
Till next time.